Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing News.
First up on DI EV News this week, Rivian plans to relocate a large number of its manufacturing engineers to its Normal, Illinois factory.
Yeah, so I think that just like Elon found out, when it comes to manufacturing, you can't really replace having eyes and hands focused on the problems right there on the factory floor.
According to the Wall Street Journal, this relocation will allow for Rivian to centralize and probably reduce the number of engineers who are right now scattered across multiple Rivian campuses, including Irvine, California.
Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, a couple dozen Rivian engineers don't want to relocate to Illinois, and who can blame them, really? And so Rivian will be offering severance packages.
As we've reported, Rivian lost $6.75 billion last year and recently issued $1.3 billion in convertible bonds to fund them through 2025.
Rivian also pushed off its plans for the smaller, cheaper R2 until 2026, which personally I think is a big mistake, but I can see why they had to do it.
And I know, moving to Normal, Illinois for a normal person is probably not going to be the biggest deal in the world. But if you're some hoitsy-toitsy engineer who, went to fancy design school or whatever and is now living in Irvine, California, and then they're like, hey, Bob,
take the whole family, pack them up, and go to Normal. And I just want to point out, if you're not familiar with the country, Normal, Illinois is pretty much in the middle of Illinois. So if you're used to Irvine, which is right near the ocean, near San Diego, beautiful part of the country, and I'm nothing against Illinois, but if that wasn't your thing, because it gets cold in Illinois and it doesn't get cold in Irvine.
And you're going to be about 2.5 hours away from Chicago.
Yeah, you're
without traffic.
I mean, you are hours away from almost any center. I mean, the closest city is Peoria. So what?
It's, Normal and Bloomington are kind of the same place. And so I think that the idea of moving and locating your factory in the Midwest, I don't want to say that it's old fashioned. I'm not trying to dig on anybody.
No, it was a smart move. Don't forget, they picked up this factory because it used to be a Mitsubishi factory. So they got it dirt cheap, just like Tesla got Fremont. But luckily, Tesla got Fremont, which is in California, which is, a place that a lot of people want to live, as opposed to Normal, Illinois, which is hard to attract. I mean, it's great for manufacturing jobs. I just don't think that it's a smart move in terms of trying to get the best engineers. And from what we've seen with our Rivian, they don't have the best engineers. They have features that needed better engineering.
And I think that this is also a mistake that Tesla made. I don't want to just be singling out Rivian here. I think that when Tesla opened the Gigafactory in Nevada, they thought, just outside of Reno. And unfortunately, getting their engineers to move to Reno, Nevada from, LA, that was a hard thing to do.
No, it's one reason why it sat there they didn't really build it out for years because they didn't have the people.
Right. It was supposed to be this shining example of what a gigafactory was supposed to be. And we didn't start to see that until, Giga China, Giga Berlin, and Giga Texas. So I think that, and Tesla has learned their lesson. Giga Berlin, Austin, Texas, these are fairly large cities with lots to do.
Although I will say, when the Tesla humanoid robot does come out, it's going to change everything.
It could change everything, but I don't think that Rivian's going to have them.
Can you imagine the Rivian humanoid robot where it's like,
they're not working on one, so we don't have to worry about it.
All right, let's go to EV startup Canoe, which is Go EV as its ticker symbol. They have revealed its Q4 earnings, citing exciting developments and new opportunities for funding after resolving its SEC investigation. So the company agreed to pay a $1.5 million settlement with the regulator over allegations that certain former executives misled investors in late 2020 and early 2021 regarding revenue projections.
Yeah, the SEC investigation was part of a broader investigation that included several popular EV stocks, such as Nikola, Lordstown Motors, and Faraday Future. However, with the investigation and other legacy matters behind it, Canoe says that it's ready to enter the next phase of its EV rollout.
So Canoe said it had several exciting developments in the quarter, including delivering its light tactical vehicle, the LTV, electric vehicle, to the U.S. Army. It also expanded its network to Saudi Arabia in a new distributor partnership with GCC Olean.
However, Canoe still ended the quarter with a net loss of $80.2 million for a loss of $487.7 million on the year. The company ended the quarter with cash and equivalents of $36.6 million. But according to Canoe's CFO, Ken Magnet, the company is exploring a number of diversified funding sources.
So the company expects operating expenses to be between $55 million to $70 million, with CapEx between $30 and $45 million in the first quarter of this year as it enters the next stage of development. So Canoe says it will benefit from the IRA bill with domestic production.
Canoe has certainly had its fair share of highs and lows since its foundation in 2017, and it's now hoping to turn a new page and move towards long-term success with its EV offerings.
Now, let's just move right on to this next thing here, because we've been reporting on ChatGPT a lot lately, as many people are, because this technology is obviously going to be a game changer. In fact, that last story on Canoe was written entirely by ChatGPT.
Like first try, basically.
Yeah.
We like copied the article into it, said write a little story about it, and I think it did a pretty good job.
So I basically only changed a couple words. I gave it a prompt to read a few articles that I fed it on Canoe, and I told it to write me a script with 2 newscasters, and well, you just saw what it did. I can attest that everything was accurate based on what I fed it, and it really felt like it got the context right, but it showed an aspect that I think we have to be very careful about. So in writing this week's Tesla Time News, I tried having ChatGPT write 3 or 4 stories, but I kept encountering an issue. Here's what it would do. I would feed it an article and ask it to summarize it for me. And on one occasion, regarding the latest ruling by the U.S. Treasury Department on EV tax incentives, it summarized the article, but then added facts that were no longer true. This was outdated info on like 200,000 car limits, for instance. I then told it that it was wrong about the limits still being in place, and it then apologized to me and rewrote it without those errors. Now, what's scary to me is that Jesse and I know these subjects very well. We've been reporting on this every week for years. So we know when it writes something that is incorrect.
But what if I fed it a 23-page medical study and asked it to summarize it for me? And what if it spit out a 1-page summary but added some outdated or incorrect facts that it thought were correct? And I mean, it's kind of like all of us. We walk around with things that we've learned and we think are correct, but often we either remember it wrong or there's new information that we haven't heard about.
And so I want to talk about how dangerous this is, because first of all, if we are just starting to use it, then imagine how many students and journalists and executives and employees are using it. They're writing blog posts, right? They're writing news articles, and it's garbage in, garbage out. And that's been true since humans started writing, right? You write something that's wrong and then it comes out wrong.
And but it's true with lots of other things in terms of analysis of companies.
Exactly.
In terms of computer code. It's something that you should keep in mind. So when people are all about the data, like you need to make sure that the data going in is valuable and not garbage.
And so I think there's this belief that, well, I'm using this supercomputer and it's super AI, so it's super right. But it's only as right as the data you feed it. And I want to go back to back in my day when people would write articles. It's not that our journalists were any smarter back then. I used to work for the college newspaper and stuff, but we used to have these curmudgeonly editors, right? And they would get your article and they would read it and be like, that's not correct, or go get me a source. And they basically were kind of the guide or the block to make sure that they didn't put out incorrect information. Not to say that they're always right, but you knew that you were going to have to prove to this person that your article was correct. Now it seems like that curmudgeonly editor has been replaced with like what I want to call like a clickbait maximizer, which is they just want eyeballs, right? So instead of trying to stop your article, they're like, good, but how can we make the headline really scary? Yeah. And if we're not going to have some kind of filter, then we're just going to get more and more what we're seeing now, which is just articles that you don't really know if you can trust, because it's like, is this true? And in our world where we know a lot about certain subjects like EVs and sustainable energy, we're just constantly bombarded with articles that are just wrong.
Or just full of crap. Like, there's just so many articles that it's just like you have to skip the first 3 paragraphs. It used to be you skip the first paragraph because, of course, I know the information, but then they added a second and a third. And I do feel like it could be ChatGPT where they're just like, well, I need to have a certain number of words because we need to have the article be long enough so that way we can fit enough ad blocks on there for us to make enough money.
And that's going back to this Canoe story, right? If you just let ChatGPT write it based on a bunch of articles, you get this just kind of bland story. It doesn't really give you the context. And what I want to talk about here with Canoe is that...
Let's talk about the context.
The context, which is they're burning money, as many startups do.
Sure, but they don't have any money.
They don't have any money, and they don't really like. There's a lot of fun sounding things here. Like we're going to give a vehicle to the the U.S. Army. We're going to start working with a partnership in Saudi Arabia. That's not going to help you guys. You need to make a vehicle cheaply and at scale. And none of this is helping to do that. So I think they're in serious, serious trouble because, look, there was so much excitement when these companies SPAC'd and went public. And EVs, anything EV is gold. And then we quickly realized, just like Elon said, it's really hard to make these things at scale. Canoe had some cool looking stuff, I will admit. It's cool looking. Their little van thing is cool looking. But as you pointed out as an engineer, is that thing going to hold up? I mean, it looks good in a photo shoot, but is it going to actually last as a van? Because one of the things they were trying to sell was this food van, right? A food truck. And those things get abused. And this company has no experience making anything. So again, I'm just really worried that these kind of companies are going to just kind of implode as funding gets so expensive and they run out of runway.
And I mean, the other thing here is Canoe really reminds me of like James Franco a couple of years ago, where he was just in every movie, not good movies, but he was just in every movie. And he wasn't like great in all the movies. He was good in some of them. But Canoe is just kind of like taking anything that they can get their hands on. Oh, the Army wants a vehicle. We'll send them it. And then we'll send out 14 press releases about it.
Yeah.
And this Saudi Arabian company, they want a thing. We'll send them one of our things.
Yeah, the press release thing. I mean, many companies know how to do it well, which is if you just keep blasting press releases out, you get stories written about you, which makes it seem like Canoe is up to great things, right, which kind of can cover up the core problems, which is, do you have great engineers? Do you have a way to make this product cheaply?
And do you have enough money to continue to run the company?
Right.
Which it doesn't seem like they do.
Well, and a lot of these other companies that they're making deals with, it doesn't cost them anything. So like Walmart, oh yeah, if you can make some for us, we'll buy them. Well, for Walmart, it's just kind of a hedge. For Canoe, they need this really badly. Right. And what we don't get to see in the deal is how much are they going to sell them for? How many do they need to make?
And there's a lot of deals. Keep your eyes open for this whenever we talk about EV manufacturers, the up to number.
Yeah.
There's always some up to number, and it's always this huge number. They're like 20,000, up to 20,000. You're like, holy crap, 20,000. No, up to 20,000.
Right. Usually Walmart or whatever company is saying they will buy up to can say, we'll stop at 5,000. We'll stop at 1,000. Right. And so it sounds sexy for the deal, but it doesn't. It's just a number to make it sound sexy.
So I personally don't really want to touch Canoe.
I don't want to crap on EV companies. I mean, our whole start to our channel was that we love electrification of transportation. But what quickly became apparent is that Tesla is the big game in the house. They're the big competition that you have to beat. And every day that goes by makes them tougher to beat. So as soon as Tesla decides that they want to make something like this, like a little van, they're just going to blow Canoe out of the water. So even though, yes, it's cool that Canoe has these kind of different things that we haven't seen before, I don't think they can make them at scale. And I think as soon as some other manufacturer starts doing it, they're going to be blown away.
But I mean, forget Tesla for a minute. They haven't run their company well up until this point.
Right.
And I don't exactly know what I want from Canoe, mostly because Canoe doesn't seem to know what they want.
Yeah, remember, they've pivoted so many times. They did not start off by making this van thing.
They started off as a subscription service to an autonomous EV. And honestly, I feel like an idiot that I wasn't screaming from the rooftops going like, how are you doing full autonomy with a company that doesn't have any money?
Well, this happens a lot in investing. Investors get kind of wind of something like 3D printing. And everyone kind of just gets this hype of like,
oh, I'll be able to 3D print all my clothes.
And investors get this FOMO where they don't want to be left behind. So they'll just invest in anything making 3D printers because
it's the next big thing, and I'm going to be able to 3D print all my clothes, and I'm going to be able to 3D print all my food, and I'll be able to 3D print my car and my shoes.
And if that had happened exactly when 3D printing came out, it would have been this big thing. But unfortunately, the printers weren't there yet. The technology wasn't quite there. So even though you could print some things like little figurines, everyone was expecting, like you said, to print their pasta and their shoes, and that didn't happen. And so then what did investors do quickly? They dive off of that. They're just like, I don't want to talk about that anymore because I was bamboozled. Now you get this kind of backlash against companies, and that's what we're seeing here.
In terms of Canoe, I'm not sure if the backlash is deserved. It feels a little deserved. They don't seem to have a good guiding first principles approach to this sort of thing.
And even if you do, it's just really hard. Even if you have a great, leader and you have, the best engineers, it's just super, super hard, especially since Tesla has taken the lead.
Yeah.
So sorry, Canoe. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Let us know in the comments what you think and things that you'd like us to cover on this channel. And don't forget to watch our Monogram Orthopedics videos. We've got one over on Now You Know channel, which is a really cool in-depth where Jesse actually becomes a surgeon. And then you get to watch his surgery here on Disruptive Investing, along with our interview with the two CEO co-founders of Monogram. Really fascinating stuff. And you can even potentially invest in their crowdfunding round. So I urge you, if you're into new technologies, into disruptive technologies, this is the kind of value that we bring you here. Companies you probably have never heard of before.
We'll see you next time
on Disruptive Investing.